Well, hello, everybody. This is Justin coming to you from the great flat Midwestern plains of Kansas City, Missouri. How's everybody doing? Hey, missed y'all. I've been away for a little while. Got a couple strikes on my YouTube channel. They decided to put me in a little timeout chair. Not sure how that was possible since they were striking down videos I posted years ago. I don't have that big of an account here, so it must be the AI bots on patrol for YouTube. So it's going to kind of tie into what I want to talk about today. Um, that seems to be a sign of the times now with AI kind of dominating and taking things over and using that as a means of control. And it's an easy way for people to get out of doing what they need to have done. Just have a robot do it for you. And to the demise of many workers, that's an unfortunate thing. But at the same time, to the benefit of the people that can afford it, it makes them lazy and it makes them unaccountable. So had I received these strikes initially at the first posting of the videos, I probably would have made a stink about it. But I've had this channel now for I think over a decade, and I got too many eggs in one basket. So I guess it was just a matter of time. So I'm going to kind of thin things out a bit. I might be going through some changes on this channel. I'm not sure. Maybe renaming, rebranding, doing some different things. I'm probably going to create another account, have some other material on it. So depending on which one comes and goes first, it'll be let the chips fall where they may, right? Not any big deal. It was kind of a relief to have some time off, being put on timeout. It gave me a chance to take a break from social media for a while, just kind of focus on the Bible and, things that are important to me in my life, friends and family and God and that kind of stuff. So that was refreshing. Also explored some other outlets, other social media platforms, and got involved in some other things. And perhaps if I start building the channel up a little bit more, I might leave links and that kind of stuff if you guys want to check those things out as well. I just have a lot of material that I'm not a big copyright guy. Some people are real adamant about, copyright infringement and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I guess it's a big deal. If something's was released, 20, 30 years ago, I'm sure the people that created that have already made their money. So anybody that owns it now is just cashing in on somebody else's work. So I don't really see a problem with it in that regards. And at the same time, there's a lot of great resources out there that speak out against intellectual property rights, because that's kind of how they're trying to build this thing. They're trying to get you on a copyright infringement. But what it comes down to is intellectual property rights, which should not apply to this type of format. The title is, as it applies, property. And so what is property when it's something that's being made a copy using technological resources, and it's not physical land or physical property? But there's a lot of lawyers that are against it and support, that type of freedom. But the only thing that I think I would adhere to as far as any type of infringement where I feel I would be violating somebody's rights, it wouldn't be with copyright. It would be with trademarks. And patents are kind of another thing. But trademarks, I believe, that's the big one. I think that's the boundary that we shouldn't cross over. I think that's biblical. But copyright, I don't think we should be persecuted for downloading somebody's movie and then sharing it with somebody else. And the argument, of course, goes, oh, well, you're stealing something and you're stealing money from from the people that created it or from the person that made it. You're look at all the money that he lost from all these people that are downloading this. And you can counter that argument with saying, well, you're assuming that the people that are downloading it were actually going to pay for it. You're assuming that they feel that product was worthy of being paid for to begin with. You can't prove in a court of law that somebody that downloaded something and copied it had any intentions of ever buying it. They probably downloaded it because they didn't want to pay for it. And if it came down to they had no option but to pay for it, then they probably wouldn't waste their time with it. So the fact that they downloaded it just says that they don't care to pay for it. It's not to them. It's not something where they deem it worthy of their financial taking a financial loss. And how many times have you paid for a movie and left the movie theater saying, "Well, there's 2 hours of my life I'm never going to get back," and then you also have to look at that as there's $20 out of my pocket that I'm not going to get back, and then the old saying goes, well, if you pay somebody $20 and you never see that person again, well, then it was money well spent. So you can look at your loss as that too. But when it comes to copyright, I'm not a stickler about it. I'm not dogmatic on that stuff. So if YouTube wants to strike me for some old movies that I had up there, whatever. So anyways, guys, I know I'm going on about stuff, but AI is kind of what I want to talk about, and why in the world do I have this creepy magazine cover up here on my page? Hey, aren't you that Christian guy that talks about King James, the Bible, and this, and that? It's like, yes, that's me. I've got some other wild ideas as well about the world, but you know what? I'm kind of looking back at these magazines. I've got kind of a history of growing up with comic books. My dad grew up in the 40s and 50s, and he grew up in the beginning of the comic book era. And so he's got quite a vintage collection of comics. So I grew up before I was saved reading all this stuff. And I was fascinated by all the science fiction comics and all the horror comics and the thrillers and suspense and all that kind of stuff. This particular comic called Creepy is by Warren Publication. And Warren Magazine, they've been around since the 60s. They might even go back before that. But Creepy itself, I believe, was started in the 60s. This particular issue, Creepy number 15, came out in 1967. You've got the cover artwork is by Frank Frazetta. And one of the biggest reasons why my father became such a big collector of comics, because he loved the artwork and he loved the artist. At least that was his excuse. And I have to believe him because when I go to ask him about the stories in the comics, he can't really tell you much about the storyline, but he can tell you all the details about every artist that drew in the comics because he was more fascinated by the art. But me being too young to appreciate the art, I got more into the stories, and so I kind of grew up reading them. Of course, my dad would read them to me as well, but that wasn't a big thing for him. But the stories were always fascinating. But getting older, coming into the faith and becoming a believer, I kind of let all these things go by the wayside and never really gave it a second thought. I just kind of figured, that's for the lost world. But, occasionally if you want to reach the lost world, you have to kind of understand where they're coming from. And not that we need to be going to the bar and drinking with them, but at least, have an idea why they're drinking and try to share, in the pain with them if they're going through pain and stuff. And then, obviously I'll offer them the gospel and tell them about Jesus and that kind of stuff. But with Creepy Magazine in particular, this was my favorite. I really enjoyed Creepy. I liked some of the sci-fi too, but I think coming into the faith, like I said, now as a believer, looking back at the lost world things that I was into, sci-fi just doesn't have an appeal to me anymore. I've got a different understanding about the model of the world, and I'm not a big supporter of heliocentrism. So I don't feel like I'm some insignificant speck floating around on flung out into the universe and, just on a godless path to nowhere, and the universe is just without end and the physical dimensions of it just can't even fathom. And the stars are so many trillions and billions of miles away. To me, it's not a thing for me anymore. Lord's put some different things on my heart, and I'm kind of seeing things in a new light. So I'm not fascinated by sci-fi. But the horror stories do still kind of have a fascination now that I'm saved, because I can look back at the horror comics and I can see a lot of these writers knew, I don't want to say they knew God, but they knew about God and they knew of his warnings and his judgments. And a lot of the horror movies kind of reflect that. Now, I can only hope and pray that some of these writers maybe came to the Lord and maybe read their Bible and maybe got saved. Only the Lord knows. But it's very well possible because reading through these old comics now, I'm like, wow, this has a biblical theme and this has a biblical theme. And so much of these stories are just biblical, but they're coming from a lost world perspective that it's so twisted. But then again, if you meet any of these people that are into this kind of stuff, and if you read through some of these comics and things, or just the Lost World material, you'll see implications of the Lost World just crying out for God, or crying out for a savior, or wanting somebody to come save them. And you see that in the Lost World music as well. Music's full of somebody save me and help me and this and that, just crying out. But they just reject the Lord for some reason. They don't want to know Jesus. I don't know what it is. It's the spirit of the age. It's the God of this world. They're of their father, the devil. And so, I guess that's what I attribute it to. I really don't know. I mean, it's got to be a God thing. God's got to work on your heart. You've got to come to some point in your life where you're just going to read that book with an open mind and an open heart, and just trust and believe. These things are true. You'll start getting that conviction, and the Lord will start opening up things for you in the scripture. And it's pretty amazing. So, Creepy Magazine. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this magazine. I've got a few things saved up here on my tab. So they did a lot of these magazines. Warren Publications, of course, they're famous for Vampirilla. I think that was the one that put them on the map. I think I was too young for the Vampirilla magazines when I was reading this stuff, so my father never really brought those out for me to read, but he was okay with me reading Creepy and Eerie. So I say Creepy. The host of the Creepy magazine is Uncle Creepy, and I think when you look at the Creep Show series and the Creep Show movie that came out, that was kind of taken from the Creepy magazine, and Uncle Uncle Creepy was a direct ripoff, or they directly ripped him off from this magazine, which, again, I don't have a problem with. That's just where it came from. Um, Eerie magazine, there's another host of this magazine. You might be able to see some of the Eerie's in here. And I'll shrink down a little bit here if I can. There we go. So Warren Publication, they did Creepy, they did Eerie, and Eerie's host name was Cousin Eerie. You got Cousin Eerie and Uncle Creepy, and they would kind of kick off the tales of all the short stories in these comics. I think the biggest difference between Creepy and Eerie was if you read a Creepy magazine. If you're reading any of these Creepy magazines, you'll start to notice that they're self-contained. Every Creepy magazine is a complete story, a complete series of short stories in and of themselves. If you got into the Eerie magazine comic, then you would start to notice that a lot of the Eerie stories would continue. So they were more of a series. You would actually have to buy several different Eerie magazines to follow one particular story. But with Creepy, you just buy one Creepy magazine and you got the complete story. And there's a lot of short stories in every issue. So that's kind of what I liked about Creepy. Warren Publications also did another magazine called 1984. It was a lot more sci-fi. Not too fascinated by that anymore. Creepy, they did all the monsters. Oh, and monsters. Warren Publication also did the famous Monsters magazine. That was kind of their thing. So if you guys are familiar with that, that was their big one. That's kind of what Warren Publications is known for. Famous Monsters, Creepy, Eerie, and of course their big one, Vampirilla. They had some offshoots. I think they had one called The Spirit. There's a spirit over here. I think that was kind of like maybe a detective story. I didn't really get into that one. But anyways, that's kind of a little background on that particular thing. So with this magazine here, we're going to see the yellowed pages. So it's definitely dated. And I still have kind of a small collection of these. My dad, of course, I think has all of them. I've got a number of them, but I don't have all of them. and they went on, I think, up into the 80s, starting out in the 60s. But like I said, some of these things, the Lost World, they have a recognition of God. They don't acknowledge the God of the Bible, but they acknowledge biblical ideas and themes. And so we're going to look at one in particular as it pertains to AI, because I talked about those AI bots after me, uh, closing down my account and giving me a strike and that kind of stuff. So, anyways, this is an idea that goes way back, and we're going back to 1967 on this one. I think before there was any type of modern day internet or computer or AI, so to speak. But all the workings were there in man's mind early on to for this technology to exist. So let's really skip ahead here. We're just going to get to one story in particular, and we're going to look at Adam Link, the champion athlete. So who is this Adam guy? um, so of course I told you about the host, and there's Uncle Creepy getting ready to kick it off, and you kind of recognize that face because the creepy movie and the Creep Show. I'm sorry, Creep Show movie and the Creep Show series directly got it from this magazine. So their character kind of looks like Uncle Creepy, and here's where it came from. So he usually kicks the story off, and he's got kind of a morbid sense of humor. So a lot of times when he's introducing the characters or the storyline as a host, he's kind of morbid and comical in his introduction. But this one we're going to read it. It's a short story. We'll just kind of go through this with you guys. And so it says, kicking it off, Adam Link. Join me here in the Grizzly Grandstand, sports friends. The big game is about to start, and I want all you jolting gymnasts in there rooting for Adam Link, champion athlete. Underworld boss Harvey Brigg and his henchmen had trapped me, destroyed my arms and legs, and then had fiendishly started heating my skull. Case with a blowtorch. My iridium sponge brain was in danger of melting. My mind whirling, I imagined I saw Eve, though I knew she was in jail. Adam, what are they doing to you? I, the other robot. So the guys are torching Adam, and Eve comes busting in there, it looks like. And you see the guys kind of shrieking in terror. While Adam's there on the ground, and he's imagining to himself, how could Eve be here? She's chained in a cell. Terrible heat, gasp, electronic pain. Adam's being torched to death. What's going on here? So we've got the artwork by Joe Orlando, and the script is by Endo Binder from his original story. Anyways. So I picked up your agonized thoughts through radio telepathy contact, Adam, so I broke my chains, wrenched the cell door off, and ran here, express train speed. But Adam doesn't answer or move. You killed him, you human fiends! Eve is screaming there. Eve the robot. Revenge, you'll pay for this. My locomotor center is heat warped, and I can't speak or move, Adam's saying there on the ground. Eve will mangle them mistakenly and be hunted down as a killer. Eve, don't! Of course, Adam's thinking that, so she can't hear him. But sirens had been wailing, and the police burst in. Save me from this metal monster. I'll confess, only don't let her get me. So one of the scientists or somebody there is pleading for help to the police officers. And even the police could not stop Eve Brigg. Eve Brigg knew that. Eve is innocent of this daring Pucelli killings. My gang did them. Eve, my voice came back. I'm alive. Let him go. All we wanted was his confession. Harvey Brigg was indicted and eventually convicted later. Our friends Tom Link, Jack Hall, and Kay helped us celebrate in our Ozark hideaway. Eve was back to her normal sized robot body and had built new arms and legs for me. Only one thing marred our joy. I tell you, Adam, I was not out of my senses. I was only trying to scare a confession out of Harvey Brigg. A likely story, Eve. You were going berserk. How dare you? Adam and Eve's first quarrel. Everybody out. This is no place for humans when Eve, with all her horsepower, starts throwing things. So you got the robot Eve having a go at Adam there. A week later, along with Jack Hall, we were in the Citizenship Bureau. Sir, Eve and I wish to apply for citizenship of the United States. Why, this is preposterous. It's like a computer or bulldozer asking for citizenship. Yes, I know all about Eve and Adam and how they broke up that crime ring, but still, you can't label a metal person human. What they need is a patent. Washington would never sanction citizenship for two robots unless you had public opinion behind you. And of course, that's the J. DeHalgren applications chief making that statement there. And we got another gentleman off here to the side says, he's given me an idea. Come on, let's go. I think this guy is looking after Adam here. We'll display your skill in sports, which often brings out sportsmanship. Also, the sports field has the least discrimination as to race. And I think we can see that today with all the guys becoming girls and girls becoming men and mix matching all the sports together. And so here they were talking about it back then with robots. And you're the first of the robot race. Publicity in sports will make you seem human in the public's eye. Robot says, maybe you're right, Jack. Let's give it a try. And so, the next Indianapolis Racing Classic. As a machine myself, I can drive with precision at 200 miles per hour. It'll be easy to beat the humans and win the race. I'm almost a full lap ahead. So there Adam is now. He's trying to gain the public's affection by doing human sports, but as a robot. So what is this going to entail? Then, as I came up behind the pack, a car overturned. Driver spilled onto the track. No human driver could avoid running over him. Screech! But I wrenched the wheel hard enough, only 2 tires blowing out. A short pit stop to change them, and I'd still win the race. So after the race, the winner by 5 laps, Adam Link. And then you got the drivers in the back saying, it's unfair. How could we win against a machine? It was an unsportsmanlike contest. Another guy's thinking, or the Adam's caretaker saying, oh boy, this is bad. The opposite reaction from what we had wanted. So Adam is saying, here, Murray, discount me. And you really won the race. Adam Link will be stricken from the records, I promise you. Hooray for Adam Link. So Adam's forfeiting his title championship. So later, your gesture won the day, Adam. Look, people are on your side. And the newspaper's reading, Tin Man has a heart of gold. Metal Man spurns speed trophy. Except for this one columnist, Bart Oliver, who seems against me. Listen, why did Adam Link even use a racing car? He could have run around the track himself and won. Racing machines against humans is the opposite of sportsmanship, when a machine can't lose. Next, Jack entered me in the Bowling Congress. 3 perfect games in a row, Adam Link. 3 perfect games in a row. Adam Link is the world's bowling champion. Champ, you must have practiced hard. Practiced? This is the first time I ever threw a bowling ball. Was tonight. So, later, a shady character approached me and, psst, Link, we could both make a lot of dough if you throw the next contest. How about it? Adam says, "Why, you? A robot will never cheat, you scoundrel." "Hey, that's Jim Brody. Runs a big gambling ring. Good thing you refused to deal with him, Adam." The headlines that night were heartwarming. "Still Hercules boots gambler." You can see him there booting that gambler down the lane. It's pretty funny. So Jack, he denies I'm human. In my feelings, he says Adam Link claims to have human feelings, but he isn't human. He turned down a big bribe. "You tin idiot, that's only a joke. He's really praising you." And Adam thinks again and says, "What a cheap way for Adam Link to try to show he has integrity. The whole episode was probably dreamed up by his press agent." So it turns out that he was against him, that particular writer. So Adam's little caretaker, provider, helper there says, "Why, that big mouth baboon? He means me, Adam. He's a tough customer to win on our side, but he's important. His column is read nationwide." Jack continued booking me in sports contests, hoping my athletic abilities would win people's admiration. So here we got Adam in all these different events. Adam Link broke the world's 100-yard dash record, clocking 5.3 seconds. And Adam says, "Too bad my foot slipped at the start." So even in his mistakes, he's holding the world records. "Get me something heavy for my next jerk and hoist." He's already lifting 1,000 pounds on each hand. So there he is doing the high jump or whatever, the pole vault. "Who needs a pole vault over this low bar?" "Wow, you just set a world high jump mark of 18 feet. And he did it without a pole vault. So, what else we got here? Looks like he's playing golf. "Another hole in one. How do you do it, Adam?" So, but the poison press tirades of Bart Oliver continued. "He's an alloy exhibitionist, proving that horsepower is greater than muscle power, which everybody knew anyway. I crown him nuts and bolts champ. Jack is our champion to humanize me backfiring. Now, if we can get Bart Oliver to admire your showmanship, you and Eve will put on an exhibition baseball game with the proceeds going to charity. I'll have the All-Stars play against you." So it looks like Adam Link's little helper there is gonna try to win over his admirers by doing a sports event for charity. So later at the game, it was my turn to bat. "Yipes, a home run on the first pitch. That ball is going to orbit. Crack." Eve did it more subtly. She hit a single. "Why did you throw Timmy on first? She's already heading for home." After our victory, a figure with burning eyes and a cynical leer approached us. "Bart Oliver, the columnist? Come to rake us over the coals again, huh? What have you got against Adam Link?" "Nothing, except I don't want robot citizens around. If Adam Link becomes a citizen, he'll make more robot citizens, and someday they'll outvote the humans. That's the danger." Adam over here says, "Ridiculous. And I think you've lost out trying to crush my dreams." It looks like after that charity event, the newspapers are saying, "Adam Link and Eve for citizenship." So he definitely won him over with that baseball event. "Despite your poison pen, people are with us. My fondest dream is coming true. Eve and I will be accepted by the humans as their equals and their friend." So now we got Uncle Creepy in conclusion. "Looks like the Beast Ball game served its purpose with our mechanical marvel. Who could be certain what's ahead in the fearful future?" Ha ha ha. So there it is, guys. That's a story told by Uncle Creepy about Adam and Eve. How about that? That's kind of unusual. So, so there we are. Even in the Lost World, they're given the world's first robots. Of course, we know the first humans were Adam and Eve, and who knows what kind of power Adam actually had back in those days. He lived for centuries and centuries. Um, so I'm sure he had a lot of strength about him. But yeah, so looking at this particular version of Adam and Eve, this is like the world's first robot Adam and Eve, and they're becoming the citizens of the world now. Um, so it kind of smacks at the Bible with the humanist perspective. For 1967, guys, that's kind of a far-fetched tale for back then. But what are we really looking at today? What's really going on with this type of thing today? So we looked at some of the Warren Publication magazines. I think we could also look at modern science today. I mean, what does that got to say about Adam and Eve? We even have a program today called Meet Adam and Eve, AI lab bots that can take on realms of data. What is all this? So this is kind of a crazy story here, and this was published a while ago. I'd never heard about this, but it's coming from the Scientific American. Um, this time, for Adam and Eve, knowledge is not forbidden. It's their mission. Working with computers and robots in the lab, scientists have been able to generate exponentially increasing amounts of data as the technology improves. Concern they lack the manpower to translate the deluge of raw information into results. Researchers are programming their mechanical lab assistants to share more of the workload. A prime example of this is Adam, an autonomous mini laboratory that uses computers, robotics, and lab equipment to conduct scientific experiments, automatically generate hypotheses to explain the resulting data, test these hypotheses, and then interpret the results. So, kind of going on to talk a bit about that. And researchers at University in Wales. The Adam Project was financed by the government of Wales. Blah blah. Kings and his colleagues designed Adam to perform basic biology, but they're hoping that their next automated lab, Eve, will help scientists search for new drugs to combat disease such as malaria, an infection caused by a type of parasitic worm in the tropics. Eve, which King experts will be up and running by July, is about the same size as Adam and costs roughly the same amount to build. Instead of testing compounds randomly, King says Eve tries to determine the best compounds to study. Blah, blah, blah. Money, money. In the future, Adam and Eve will work in tandem, not in Eden, but rather in a lab where Adam prepares essays for Eve to use and search for promising new chemical compounds and drug candidates. So there it is. Secular humanists want to steal the title Adam and Eve and apply it to their own little satanic garden because, hey, we're not talking about the Garden of Eden anymore because we don't believe in that. This isn't a laboratory. But yet we're going to steal the name Adam and Eve. So there's science, modern day Adam and Eve in a robot form, I guess, so to speak, about 50 years later. So another interesting Adam and Eve AI development was coming from this little article here, Creepiest Stories in Artificial Intelligence and AI Development, 2017. I believe that comic originally was in 67, so we're looking at about 50 years later. If you're not scared of what AI has done so far, you'll probably will be after reading this article. So she's going on to talk about virtual cannibalism. Oh my goodness. So this story was told by Mike Sellers, who was working on some social AI DARPA in early 2000s. They were making agents that learn to interact socially together. Imagine that. All they needed to do is read their Bible and they could figure out how to interact socially together. But they have to have robots do it so they can teach us humans. For one simulation, we had taught two agents naturally enough named Adam and Eve. Naturally enough, won't you say? You reject the Bible, but yes, that's naturally enough of a name for you to come up with. They started out knowing how to do things, but not knowing how much else. They knew how to eat, for example, but not what to eat. We'd given them an apple tree. The symbolism of that, honestly, didn't occur to us at the time. Oh my goodness. Oh, heavens me. These guys have got to be kidding me. The symbolism of that, honestly, didn't occur to us at the time. Somebody's lying there. They found that eating an apple made them happy. They had also tried eating the tree, the house, etc. But none of those worked. There was also another agent named Stan who wanted to be social but wasn't very good at it. So was often hanging around and kind of lonely. And of course, there were a few bugs in the system. Blah blah blah. Not long into this particular simulation, we happened to be watching Adam and Eve finished up the apples on the tree and were still hungry. They looked around assessing potential targets. Lo and behold, to their brains, Stan looked like food. So they each took a bite out of Stan. So there's another bug in the AI robots that they had created here that were on a eating frenzy. Of course, they loved the apples, but were when their gluttony continued to eat after that. Um, Human body mass hadn't been properly initialized. Each object by default had a mass of 1.0, which is what Stan's body was. Each bite of food took away zero point 0.5 unit of mass from whatever was being eaten. So when Adam and Eve both took a bite of Stan, his mass went to 0.0 point 0. He vanished. As far as I know, he was the first victim of virtual cannibalism. And so there you have it, guys. So there's a short little uh, section there about creepy AI and introducing a biblical Adam and Eve from the garden into AI development. And these guys don't believe in the Bible. So as far as AI getting citizenship, you guys may or may not remember Sophia. And Sophia was a artificial intelligent robot. I believe she was developed by Hansen Technologies. This is what she looks like, and pretty fascinating. Got no problem with where they're trying to take this. Of course, you see it going all kinds of directions, and for the good and for the bad. Obviously, they're going to try to work the evil in there. Everything's been given over to Satan. But why am I talking about Sophia? Well, because they've actually made her a citizen of Saudi Arabia in 2017. Again, this is 50 years after the comic that we read. 50 years after. So here we got Adam. Ridiculous. And I think you've lost out trying to crush up my dreams. And why is that? Because Adam, Link, and Eve for citizenship. So here in this comic book, they gave citizenship to a robot back in 1967, well before any type of artificial intelligence or AI bots even existed. So that's kind of interesting. And here we are in 2017. In October 2017, Sophia became a Saudi Arabian citizen, the first robot to receive citizenship of a country. In November 2017, Sophia was named the United Nations Development Programmer's first ever innovation champion and is the first non-human to be given any United Nations title. So that's pretty fascinating. If you guys want more information on her, obviously you can Google that and get all kinds of information on it. But I recommend, if you guys aren't familiar with the Truth is Stranger Than Fiction's channel, Will is the guy that owns that channel and actually did a fascinating piece on Sophia and the technology behind her. And he's a wonderful brother in the Lord. And so he puts a Christian perspective on what's happening here with this AI and Sophia, and it's pretty fascinating. But check out Will's channel, The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, and see if you can dig up what he has to say here about Sophia. So what is Sophia? So Sophia, that name means wisdom. So that's kind of interesting. And another perspective of Sophia as a type of the Holy Spirit. In Gnosticism, Sophia is the feminine figure, analogous to the soul. but also simultaneously, one of the emanations of the monad, Gnostic, held that she was the syzygy of Jesus, that is, the bride of Christ, and was the Holy Spirit of the Trinity. So the Gnostics are putting Sophia as a type of bride of Christ, which is who we are if you're saved and you're a Christian. We're the bride of Christ, not this robot AI citizen. But it's interesting. And Sophia, I think if you look at the etymology of Sophia, you'll find that the etymology of Sophia goes back to philosophy, philosophy, wisdom. So philosophy is kind of a wisdom of the age, a wisdom of the humanist, wisdom of the mind. Sophia, wisdom, philosophia. So that's kind of where that word came from, and it's a Greek thing, again meaning wisdom. And I think if you read any Bible outside of the King James Bible, I think you'll find the word Sophia in their Bibles. They replace it. The Septuagint, meaning wisdom of God. Biblical Sophia appears in the Septuagint, Greek translations of the Bible, replacing chochema, the Hebrew word for wisdom. So I've no doubt that if you get a hold of one of the New Age Bibles, you'll find the name Sophia in there. And it's a sign of the times. There's Sophia for you. Wisdom of the world, worldly wisdom. And of course, they're all trying to get back to the garden. That seems to be the goal of the lost world. Hey, let's get back to that garden, but we don't need God. We're going to do it ourselves. So YouTube had the AI bots out on my channel, and they dug up some dirt on me from almost 5-10 years ago and wanted to pull some of my videos and give me a strike, put me in timeout. So it is what it is, guys. No big deal. Just wanted to share that little story with you guys and missed everybody. Sorry I haven't been up here doing more videos. I'll try to get back into it. But guys, I'm just really hoping you guys are staying faithful. Really hoping you guys are staying in the Word, reading your King James Bible, just loving the Lord and telling people about Jesus now more than ever. As I believe we're in the last days. I think every generation could say they're in the last days. And if you're a human, you're in your last days because it's appointed once for man to die, after this to judgment. So anybody that's alive is dying. So you are in your last days, even if you don't believe the Bible. But I really think that these are the end times. I really believe the world has been given over to Satan. I believe what the Bible says. It's just amazing to see these parallelisms in secular comics and in the world and technology, recognizing God, having a form of godliness, but not knowing the Lord. Guys, stay faithful. God bless you guys. Have a great, wonderful, fantastic day, evening, whatever the case may be. Guys, I'm signing off. Have a good night, everybody. God bless.